with Estonia's story, we have to start from a little bit of history. It's relevant to answer why digitalization happened here, because we used to be part of the Soviet Union. So, as you probably all know, in 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. And for us, it was a huge thing. I mean, we saw the Russian tanks leave Tallinn, leave Estonia. Amazing thing. We were euphoric. It was a huge thing for us. But after that initial happiness and excitement went away, we actually discovered that we were living in a broken state. So we had no systems in place. We had to write laws from scratch. We had nothing. And our people, they were living in such a situation that they actually had difficulty meeting their everyday needs. Where am I going to get rent for next month? How am I going to feed my children? These were the issues that our people were facing with. Now, what our leaders were facing was a situation where people were scattered across Estonia. People were living in basically forest in the middle of nowhere in remote areas of Estonia. And if you have only 1.3 million people and a quite huge area to cover and no money to build public offices everywhere, then how do you reach those people? This was the task that our leaders had to face. And the 90s happened to be the rise of the internet. You probably all remember it was just getting popular. So our leaders thought that let's try it out. Let's take the risk to try to reach everybody digitally because it's cheaper and we don't have another choice. And even though the situation was quite dire, one thing that was working for us was the fact that Tallinn had been the home of Soviet Cybernetics Institute since the 60s. So the first Soviet computer was actually built in Tallinn. And it was, I think it was about the size of this room. It didn't really do much. But what's the point is that even when the Soviets left in the 90s, they took all of their computers with them. Some of the local IT talent remained here. So we had this great combo of the leaders who made the decision and the specialists who knew how to make it happen. And that was the starting point in the 90s. Now, today, we can already talk about the benefits. So what has digitalization given us? Since last month, actually, we can say that of our public services, 100% are now digital in one way or another. The last one was divorce. Before last December, you had to meet your ex multiple times. Now you can do most of the paperwork online and then come together for the last signing part. And of course, the public isn't the only sector that is going digital. The private sector is also going digital. And I would like you to remember banks. I will come back to banks because they actually played an important role in popularizing digitalization. Because our people were suspicious at first. I mean, who wouldn't be? Something totally new. You don't really understand how do these digital services work. They needed convincing. And the public sector actually helped the state with this. But I will come back to this. Now, this number usually gets two types of reaction. Our guests are either really impressed or really depressed of this. So, what does it look like? You just log into the Tax and Customs Board. You will be presented with a pre-filled form. So you don't have to insert any numbers. You don't have to even hire a bookkeeper to make sense of all of this. You just log in, you check if all of the numbers are correct. And in my experience, they are always correct. I have never had to correct anything. And then you just confirm with your digital signature. And that's it. I mean, if you have a private business, it might take maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. But usually we are talking about minutes, not hours or days or weeks.
Germany months. Germany months.
Oh, really? I mean, you can always improve. This is a starting point, right? But now, if you imagine declaring taxes on paper, going to different public or private bank offices to gather the papers and then present them and calculate everything, and then doing taxes digitally like we are doing, you can already imagine the benefits that we are getting. So we are saving time, of course, for the people who can just do it independently, even in the middle of the night. It's time and location independent. And we're also saving money for the state. So you don't need that many public offices open anymore. You don't need that many workers anymore. And that goes for digitalizing all the public services. It's helpful for both parties, and you can spend this time instead for things that you're really interested in. If you are a business owner, you can actually spend this time improving your business instead of doing the boring admin and paperwork.
But
yes.
you get a lot of people unemployed because it also costs jobs.
I mean, yes, but I don't know. Maybe this is a personal preference, but I don't think being a professional paper shuffler is a really good job or a really interesting job. Those people have actually found other occupations. So nobody has been really upset because they cannot be a public office worker or a bank office worker anymore. People are actually preferring all of this, here at least. Now, another part of how digitalization is affecting us daily is, of course, our healthcare system, which is digitalized by today. Again, the starting point was quite bad. We had no medical data digitalized from the Soviet times. Again, the first step was just gathering the data, starting to digitalize it. And the first version of our healthcare system, or this e-healthcare system, was launched only in 2008. So 17 years after regaining our independence. It took almost 2 decades to actually reach this point. And what the purpose of our e-health portal was is to bring all of the health data in one place for the person. So it does not matter if I go to a public hospital, if I go to a private clinic, if I go to my health portal, I will see all of my health history in one place. I can decide if I want to share it with my family doctor or if I want to hide it. We also have an option to just close off all of your health data for everybody. So even if the paramedics are in an emergency trying to help you, they will not get access if you decide to do so. So in a way, this is an example how digitalization has helped us to gain control over who sees our data. Instead of being in the dark, going and checking, are you seeing my data? Do you have access? Do you not have access? It's quite bleak. Here we can check everything. Now the next logical step was, of course, e-prescriptions. Before, we had to, every time, get an appointment at our family doctors, usually take time out of our workday because the doctor's office is open only in working hours. And then you would go there, you would get this greenish piece of paper and then go to the pharmacy and try to decipher what the doctor wrote, the handwriting, and if you get lucky, you will get your prescribed medicine, right? So nowadays it's a bit different. Again, this goes through this health data, and to get your prescribed medicine, you just need this ID card. And every Estonian has this card. Now, this is an example how we actually integrated a digital tool in a way that even the elderly started using it in the following year. In 2010, we introduced this, and in a year, over 90% of the people were actively using it. Because the elderly as well, you don't need special training to just give this card to the pharmacist instead of a piece of paper. So for them, it was a really easy transition. And I can give you an example of my own life. I have migraines, so I need repeat prescriptions every 3-4 months or so. And last time I needed a refill, I was having lunch at work, and I was just logging into the website through my family doctor's office website. I just checked the box that I want to order the same prescribed medicine that I had the last time. I don't even know the exact name of the medicine. It's in the system already. And about 3 or 4 hours later, on my way back to home, I just hopped by the pharmacy, and this prescription was already on my card. So it was just a matter of hours to get my prescription, and we have actually started collaborating with different countries. So already we have a deal with Finland and Poland and Spain and Portugal and some other countries where if I go to Spain, for example, and I run out of my migraine medicine, I can order it the same way and go to a Spanish pharmacy and get this with my card. Or in Finland, or in Poland. We are sharing some of the basic data. It's really, really helpful for people who have chronic illnesses, who really need their medicine constantly. Yes?
How did you get to convince the population of this benefit of the system? Because in Germany there's a lot of discussion, and people are very part of the people they don't like because of the protection of the personal data.
A very valid concern, but again, it's a tool to actually control who sees it as well. So it's not only that you are giving this data into this black hole of a digital system, but you actually can check. I will demonstrate. We have something we call the data tracker, where you can see who has been looking at your info. And you actually have more control in seeing who is checking your data. You can lock this info from certain people, certain groups. Instead of, imagine information about your prescriptions, for example, being on paper in a hospital somewhere, and you don't see who is looking at that paper, who is looking at the paper, who is checking your file out of curiosity, whatever. In the digital system, everything leaves a mark. So we had this mind shift that we feel that it's actually more safe, that we can check everything. Yeah. So e-ambulance, also another tool to actually make exchange of data faster. A lot of Estonians, for example, have country houses. Is it common with you as well? You have a country home somewhere? Okay. Well, in Estonia, those country houses tend to be in the middle of nowhere because we are distant people, right? We don't want to be close to anybody. Those country houses tend to have no addresses, so if there is an emergency, let's say you fall, you are maybe in so much pain that you can't even really describe through phone where you're located, what your worry is. So you can give them actually permission to pinpoint your location through the phone call, and the paramedics can already start sending data to the hospital on their way there, so they can start preparing for you as well. So this movement of data to make everything more faster, to give the paramedics basic data.
But you use your card through the mobile in this system?
No, not exactly, but the phone, I mean, how does the police find
Now,
you?
if there was an accident out there,
Yeah.
or something,
Yeah.
you took your card to the mobile?
No, you just do a phone call.
A phone call?
Yeah, but usually, I mean, with us, usually your GPS or your location on your phone is already active all the time.
And how do you get the data to the police or to the hospital?
When the paramedics arrive, then they get to
Okay,
scan this
then
card. Yes, and they will get your basics only, so your blood type, or if you have allergies, or are you pregnant, or those things. They don't get access to everything.
Okay.
And yeah, this is where we are right now. And Estonia has an issue that many other countries can relate with, that in 100 years probably the average Estonian is going to look like this. So we have an aging population, a declining population as well. So we know that no potential healthcare workers are being born, right? And there are going to be more patients as years go by. So how do you prevent this problem? Now we're trying to do this through the data we get from the biobank. So about 15% of our population is given DNA samples that are being studied by scholars and by medical experts in Tartu, our university city. And they are trying to find out maybe Estonians are prone to a certain type of cancer. Maybe there are some differences in gender, in age groups. They are all trying to find this out. And then if you put it together with this digital healthcare system, maybe in the future we can think of a situation where the healthcare system starts nudging you in advance. By the way, you might have this problem in 5 years. Maybe check your health habits. You can maybe prevent the illness. Because preventing an illness is always cheaper than
You also
curing
check
it.
out if you need some spare parts for your body.
I mean,
Yeah,
probably.
but normally if the heart is gone or something like this and you need a new one,
Yeah.
you check it also by the new bank?
I mean, not through the biobank, but through this healthcare system. This data is moving as well. If you're willing to be a donor, for example, you can check it in the healthcare system and they will use this data to make everything more faster. So, can we move on, or do you have questions about healthcare?
This biobank is a institution done by the government, or
It's a totally separate institution, created for this purpose only.
it's
This
private
biobank.
or what?
I think it's under the University of Tartu.
Ah, okay.
So in a sense, it's connected to the state.
And do the data go to the health insurance?
No. This biobank is actually quite private. I was too late. I couldn't give a DNA sample. So I am quite pissed that I can't actually see anything. I can't even log in the system. Only those 200,000 people who have given their data can see and access only their data. You can't even really see the general trend because they're still testing it. They're trying to figure out how to do it in a way that it doesn't breach anyone's privacy as well. But right now they're still working on it. Yes?
Do you use this biobank data for artificial intelligence?
They are using artificial intelligence, yes.
For training, the training starter.
I don't know if they're really training. I just know that they are using AI to find similarities or any, what's the word, patterns in this data. In that sense, they are using AI as well. Now, another controversial thing that we are doing here is voting over the internet. Something that is raising a few eyebrows, making people concerned. It's understandable. Now, we have been doing it since 2005, so 20 years, and we are still the only country in the world who has been doing it nationwide. So other countries have tested in local level elections. We have been using it on national elections. And now, what does it look like? For voting over the internet, you just need a computer, you need the same ID card, and internet connection, basically. So it's time and location independent, this voting, and it has made voting and elections more inclusive. We have many Estonians living abroad. They can now take part in this democratic process. And you might remember, I mentioned that people are living sparsely around the country. Nowadays, the people who are living in remote corners of Estonia tend to be the elderly. Maybe they have mobility issues. Their nearest polling station is 20 kilometers away. For them, it's much more convenient to actually use internet voting as a tool. And we are not forcing anybody. What the voting period usually looks like in Estonia is that it lasts a week, this election period. And the first 6 days are only for voting over the internet. And you can vote as many times as you want, by the way. In that period, over the internet, you can vote 5 times, 10 times, 20 times. So if someone tries to bribe you to vote for their candidate, I would say take the money, because you can go home and then vote again for your candidate. So for this reason, to prevent the pressure or the bribing aspect, we have made it possible to change your vote. And the last vote is the only one that counts. Now, maybe there are some people who don't want to vote over the internet. Maybe they don't trust the system. The last day tends to be a Sunday. The 7th day of the election week is the election day. It is traditional in a way that we are all familiar with. You can go to the polling station, you get this piece of paper, and you can vote traditionally. So, by the way, you can do both.
You can also do it by paper?
Yes.
And send the paper to the office?
You're going to the polling station.
But all the old people who stay at home and not healthy enough to go out, What do they do?
They can vote over the internet, and they do.
Yeah. And a person who's 90 years old,
Yeah.
not connecting to the or not familiar with the computer.
Yes.
What's
Usually, by the way, they are usually here, or they have someone to help them, or they can go to their local libraries, where they have computers over there, and the librarian who actually guides them through the system. They can declare taxes like this as way as well. But let's say you are voting over the internet. You made your decision, and then on the last day, when iVotes are closed, your candidate is exposed with a scandal. You want to change your vote. Then you can go to the polling station as well. If you vote both ways, over the internet and on paper, the paper vote always outweighs the internet vote because it's the last one you gave, right? So this is what it usually looks like. And by 2023, we reached the point of more than half of our voters preferring to do it over the internet.
How do you check it when one is voting with the computer and the other one, and the same is going to the polling station? How do they know it?
This card, basically.
But you are registered in a system or in your community or?
Yeah, well, basically, if you vote over the internet, it's like a double envelope system. The outer one is your identity, the inner one is your vote. And this outer envelope is not opened before it is checked through if you can vote, if you are of age. If you voted multiple times, then what's the last vote? And then on the last day, you will get the lists from the physical polling stations who went to vote physically, and those are also removed. And only then are the envelopes, let's say, opened and the votes are actually disconnected from the identification. But the info is actually sent from the polling stations. That these people came, they voted on paper. If any of them voted over the internet, you can erase those votes. I was actually one of the people who voted on paper in 2023. Just out of curiosity. I wanted to see what's going on in the polling station. Hadn't been there for like 10 years. And I was actually quite surprised. Because I was expecting, let's say, old people go to the polling station, young people vote over the internet, right? Not at all. So it was quite across the board. The picture I saw, there were people from my area, familiar faces, people my age, who just hopped by the polling station. It was a nice March Sunday. Some of them had their dogs with them, probably were on a walk with their dog and then hopped by the polling station. There were, of course, the elderly, but there were young people. They were wearing suits. It was their first election. They came with their parents. It was an event for them. So across the board, I saw different age groups, and the stats actually support what I saw there. We see that the iVoting and the paper voting, the popularity does not change with age groups or education level. It is across the board. And the activity of voting is also quite stable. From 2005, when we introduced iVoting, it hasn't really raised the popularity. And we see it with most of the things. Once you digitalize a service, it does not really get more popular. People are divorcing here and there now that we made it popular, or not now that we made it digital, sorry. This is an example of this. Digitalizing a service does not make it really more popular, it makes it more accessible. Now, if we're already talking about voting, we can talk about democracy in general. We inherited a corrupt state from the Soviet Union. Corrupt and bureaucratic. And the starting point was, again, quite bad, but I can say it with confidence that I personally believe that digitalization has actually helped us get rid of this. So if you imagine that all of the documents are digital, every manipulation leaves a mark. Everything is checked and time-stamped and encrypted. It's much harder to actually be corrupt. One of our presidents has this quote that you cannot bribe a computer. So we actually see that making everything digital is helping us with this. Now, by the way, one important point is that over here, every citizen is the owner of their data, not the state. I am the owner of my health data, my insurance data, everything about me is my property. And we have tools like the data tracker. I already mentioned it a little bit, where you can check who has been looking at your information, who has been making inquiries about you. I can check it anytime. And people are quite actively using it. About a quarter, 26% of people are actively using data tracker to check if their information is safe. Now, digitalization has helped with discourse between the people and the state. You can communicate better. Voting is one thing, making it more inclusive if you make it possible over the internet. But we have something like the Citizens Initiative portal as well. We're using it on state level, we're using it on local level, and it's a portal where if you have an idea that you think should be a law, if you get enough support with digital signatures, this is streamlined straight to the parliament or straight to the local government that you have. A really good tool against populism. Some problems tend to look really, really big in social media and in newspapers, but if you don't get enough support, then apparently it's not that big of a problem. And people have been using it for softer values, mostly. So animal rights or a same-sex marriage was an issue a few years ago. Politicians couldn't agree on this. And they were already trying to put it on the shelf. Let's wait until the next election and let them figure things out. And people were sending actively through this portal signals that this is something you have to figure out. We want this sorted out. Please figure something out. And they did. So again, a really good tool to communicate the state and the people. We see through numbers that our digitalization is paying off with eliminating corruption. So we are sharing the 12th spot with Canada right now. But we're quite proud of being amongst the 12 least corrupted nations. Because again, let's consider the starting point, Soviet Union, and a quite small time frame to reach this point. Now, we will soon get to how this technically is possible, but another example of how we have been successful is our startups.
One question to the data.
Yes.
The data was on storage somewhere in Estonia.
Which data?
The data of the people, all together in one room or one server or something like this.
We will get there. We will get there.
Okay.
How we are storing this information. How are we keeping it safe?
Okay.
And what about the security of the data? Because some people fear their data may be abused by cyber criminals, for example, banking systems or what else.
We will also get there as well.
Okay.
Yes, I'm glad that you're thinking with me. It's early in the morning and you're active. That's cool. Any other questions?
We have everything on one card. We have different kinds of cards for rental service, assurances, and identity card and something like that.
Yeah, we have it actually switched around, but I will get there. I will get there. I promise you. I will not keep this a secret. But just quickly about business as well, or something that we are known for, being a startup hub. We don't actually know how we became a startup hub. Why did we reach this point that we have thousands of startup businesses? We can make assumptions how this happened because we don't know. One of the factors how we are so active in startup culture is just our cultural background, our attitude as Estonians. If you are in a starting point in the 90s where everybody is in the same hard situation, there aren't people who are living better than others. Everybody is in this low point and everybody needs to do something because there's only 1.3 million. Everybody has to play their part. then this has actually created this attitude that if we have a problem, let's just pick ourselves up and just solve this problem. We're not really waiting for a responsible institution to fix the problem. We're constantly scanning. Maybe we can improve something. Maybe we can turn this into a business idea and turn this into a profit. This is one reason why we have so many startups. And one thing that also helped, this second factor, is first success stories. So Estonia has 10 unicorns that we have gotten with these 30 years, even less actually, 25. And we are quite proud of them. And the first success story was Skype. Of course, you've all heard about Skype. So when Skype actually was invented and when it got popular and successful, it was a really, really great boost for others. Because we have this like inferiority complex. We're so small, we're so poor, we are not going to be successful in a global scale. But then Skype came, and we're like, okay, this is possible, we can do this. So other startups started just coming like mushrooms after rain, after Skype happened. And the third factor that's probably helping is this supportive ecosystem from the state. So we have special visas for startups and scale-ups to easily hire foreign workforce, foreign talented workforce, to grow. We have made our tax system quite supportive. So if you actually reinvest your profits, you are not taxed on this. So it's again a boost or a nudge to just reinvest, just grow, grow. We are not taxing you for growing. And these are the 10 unicorns that have started from Estonia. Maybe you'll see some. Yes, Skype was the first one.
Oh.
You see some familiar logos, probably. So this is something that is called the Estonian Mafia in Silicon Valley. So these Estonian unicorns that are really, really hustling around the globe and then coming back home and not really competing but sharing experiences, innovating together and then together going behind Estonian borders and then just doing it. But how did we build this? There are these basic pillars of our digital state. You have multiple cards, we have one card. That is our digital identity. You can have a look and pass it around. This is my card. Ooh. Please don't mind the picture if it comes to you. But this card was introduced in 2002. And when it was, everybody had to get one. It was mandatory. And people were upset. Because in 2002, we didn't even have those digital services. It was just a piece of plastic. We actually have a joke that the most use out of this card is to scrape ice off the windshield in the winter. That's how useless it was. And you have a question, yeah?
Yes. What happens when you lost your card?
When
another man used the card?
All of the info on this card is public anyway. You can't really do anything with just the card. The card comes with pin 1 and pin 2. Okay. Without the pin codes, you can't really do anything. If you decide to steal it, I mean, you will get one more piece of plastic to your wallet with a foreign face. But remember I mentioned banks. Now, here is where banks actually helped us a lot. The Nordic banks had come to Estonian market in the 90s, and they wanted to provide services online as well. They wanted to do it safely. Their clients needed to identify themselves. So why reinvent the wheel if Estonia already made this card? So the banks actually joined the system. They started using this card first. Giving out free ID card readers so you can connect it to your computer and, I mean, your finances. This is something you use every day. So this actually popularized this card. Now it got a meaning. And nowadays, this card is many things. So this is my driving license. My e-prescriptions are on this card, I mentioned, right? This is a travel document in Schengen area. This is also a loyalty card at stores. If I want to get a discount at a bookstore, I can use this card. Yes?
When you say that's your driver's license, how
Yes.
can police check if you have a driver's license like this? Because it's an ID card and not a driver's license for a police.
Well, on this card, here is an 11-digit code. This is a personal code. So basically, nowadays, you can actually give your police just the code. And from the system, they will see everything. Because all of the data is in the system. We actually have physical driving licenses. This is mine. You can choose. In what? Excuse me.
Not by wireless, NCT like you buy the, it's the Bluetooth, the other system. NCT?
Oh, no.
Das ist die Führerschein. Die hat zum Führerschein noch dazu.
Yeah.
Obwohl das
But if we're talking about using this card,
ist da draußen.
people are actively using it, or if you need it physically. But there are other options now. So there are two mobile options. Thank you. So there are two mobile options that people are also using. They are also working with PIN 1 and PIN 2. Mobile ID is based on your SIM card. Your telecommunication provider is going to give you this special SIM if you order it. And then if you want to log into your online banking or something through your phone where you cannot really insert an ID card, then you can use mobile ID. So it's going to send a prompt to your phone and you will put in your PIN codes if necessary.
Question, please.
Yes.
If you're going abroad, how do you manage with your driver's license if you're controlled by a foreign police station? If,
Yeah.
perhaps when you're going to Germany,
Yes.
you're controlled by police?
Then I will have this with me.
Okay.
If people go traveling, they usually get this. Or, I mean, again, we aren't really using passports anymore. But if you go to, I don't know, Asia or the States, somewhere where it's necessary, people have it. They order it. But if you don't need it, you don't have to have it. That's the fun part. And Smart ID is also a mobile option, but it's app-based. You don't even need a SIM card. You can just download an app, and then you need stable internet connection. And I will demonstrate how this works as well. If you aren't an Estonian citizen, you can use e-residency to access our digital country as well. Actually, Germans are the second biggest group of e-residents that we have. Second most active. The first ones are Ukrainians, for obvious reasons, then Germans, and then Spanish people. The most active e-residents that we have. Starting businesses in Estonian digital soil and doing all of their dealings. Now that's the first pillar. The second pillar, question about where we are storing all of the data. Now, we have something we call the X-road. It is a difficult concept, but I'll try my best. So, imagine all of the info the state has about me. Info about my social benefits, if I have any children, my vehicles, my taxes, my health. All of this data is made into different bits and pieces, and it's distributed to different databases. So we don't have this huge super server that holds all of this together. Instead, it's distributed. Now, if you need a service that requires data from different databases, for this service, we use the X-road. So it's like a road for the data. It's brought together in one place for this service, and then after the service is provided, it is sent back to its home base. And no copies are kept. So there's only one place where the data is being held, and nobody else is keeping a copy. So if the hackers decide to hack one system or one registry, they will get one tiny fragment that they cannot really do anything with. We actually, it's an embarrassing story, but we had an incident where the police was hacked a few years ago. And the hackers got access to 300,000 passport pictures. But again, this passport picture wasn't connected to a place of residence or tax or income or social connections. They were just pictures of grumpy faces because of this decentralized system. And they got this data back quite quickly and no big harm was done.
You're working with blockchain technology?
With few registries, yes. The most important ones, we use blockchain as well. But let me show you what X-Road looks like in real life. This is a simple picture. Give me a second. Let me show you. Okay. So this is X-Road in real life. So this is the back end of our digital state. And in this spider web, you have all the public databases and the private ones as well. So through this, the data is moving. It's not open all the time. It's opened only when the owner of the data gives permission for the info to move. So I, as a citizen, as the owner of my data. I'll give you an example. Let's put in LHV Bank. So this is an Estonian bank. I'm sorry, it's in Estonian, but you will get the point. So let's say I go to the bank to get a loan to buy me a property. The bank needs to do a background check on me. If I have, let's say they need access to the land board to see if I have any properties previously I want to use as insurance. They can get access to the tax and customs board, to the police and border guard to do all this background check on me. With my permission, of course. They can make it through X-Road, bring this info together, fill everything out for me. I don't need to prove anything. I, as a customer, I can just sit back and let them do the work. And then they provide this service for me. Let's say I get the loan. After that, they will send this data back. So the bank isn't keeping copies about how many properties I have or what is the situation with my taxes.
Who is controlling that the bank didn't keep copies?
This is just required by law. But I mean, we are checking the server. Yeah, of course. The most important ones we are trying to check. We have separate laws for the private businesses and for the public registries, but they are not actually allowed to keep copies because we have this one only principle.
But also outside Estonia, some big companies also not allowed to keep the data, and they do it.
Yeah, but this is also same on paper. So this isn't an issue of digitalization. This is just an issue of thievery or fraud, right? With digitalization, you can actually check if they have sent this data back. With paper, you don't know if they made copies somewhere of the paper or not. So again, the ease of checking and controlling is bigger with digitalizing because everything leaves a mark. Oh, thank you. But this is how we are using this card as a prescription, e-prescription. We are using this as a loyalty card to get to our online banks because the clinics, the insurance companies, the banks, the stores, they are all connected to this system that's running in the background. And I, as an end user, I can just say, I want to do everything with this card. I don't want to present any papers. You go and ask it yourself in a way that it leaves a mark.
When you lose it, how long does it last to get a new one? Because in the meantime you are out of order.
It usually takes about maybe 5 days, a week to get this physical card. But in the meanwhile, you have mobile ID. you have smart ID. You can use these instead. And some people still have their passport if you need to present physically to get your medicine, for example. You can use your passport as well. Now let's go to the third pillar. Or do you have any questions about X-Road?
Do you also pay with that? So you can...
No, this is not a bank card. This is just an identity card. We use our bank cards for this. Yeah.
And how old? How old do you have to be to have a card like this?
You can be a baby if you want.
It starts at baby age.
You need to have this when you turn 14. But many Estonians get it earlier because, as I said, it's a travel document. The parents want to go to Paris with their baby. It's easier to make this card for your baby instead of a passport. But let's talk about security. Third pillar of our digital state, a really important pillar. Give me a second, I'll go back. Have you already visited? Yes. Nice. I'm sorry, I took the nice picture away. but you can go and see it in person. So, security, a really important part of digitalizing. If you have a digital state, you will get hacked. This is inevitable. We have hack attempts all the time. And how have we become this country, this tiny country that is actually giving advice to others how to keep your cyberspace safe? Through experience. So we were the first country to actually live through a large-scale cyber attack against us as a country. You can guess 3 times from which neighbor this attack came from. But it happened in 2007. So in 2007, our Prime Minister decided that we need to move a Soviet monument from the center of Tallinn. It had become a dangerous gathering place for Kremlin-minded people. And, of course, our eastern neighbor did not like that we wanted to move this statue somewhere else, lessen their influence. So they orchestrated actual riots on the streets. So this Christmas market, this old town, if you go and have a walk over there, imagine all of the windows bashed in. Things set on fire over there, because that's what was happening in 2007. It was dangerous to be here on the streets. And simultaneously, there were hundreds of DDoS attacks on all of our most important registries, all of our biggest media houses, and all of our biggest banks that were operated here. And this was happening all at once while the things were set on fire on the streets. And I mean, we were also surprised that the biggest harm happened on the streets. So the worst thing that happened in the digital space was that some of the servers, it got too dangerous and we just closed the system down. So we just shut the system or the registry down just to keep it safe. And okay, we had to do things on paper for 2 or 3 days. That's fine. But none of the data was stolen. None of it was actually hacked into. And the worst harm was done on the streets. So through this experience, we actually learned a lot. We discovered that this digital state or architecture is quite resilient. And after this, Tallinn became a home to quite a few things. So the NATO's Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence is in Tallinn. Of course, European Union IT agency is here. We are quite proud, such a tiny country, but those 2 huge alliances have some of their bases here. So there is a lot of cyber research and training and communicating and strategizing going on right here in Tallinn. Yes?
Is it cybercrime unit in the hand of police, or who takes care of it?
We have a separate body for this. Sorry. We have Information System Authority, who is actually taking care of X-Road, checking if everything is okay over there. Of course, the police are involved, and many ministries actually. I will show you how we are governing all of this, because this is also decentralized, just like the databases. We don't have this one digital ministry. The responsibility lies on everybody at the same time. But to conclude those three pillars, these are the basis of our digital state. So you have confidentiality, your identity, basically. A way to identify yourself. This is the only reason we can vote over the internet, because we have a safe way of identification. Availability, so the movement of info. How do the paramedics send data from the ambulance car straight to the hospital? Through X-Road. Everything is moving through X-Road. And this is what our state is built on. And then keeping this data safe. So you asked about blockchain. We are using KSI blockchain, which is the same logic as cryptocurrency, but not really the same thing. So it's a specially designed security layer on X-Road. So it's timestamping. When data is moving, it's timestamping all of this. So we can mathematically prove that none of the data has been tampered with. And it actually assures us that data cannot be manipulated from the inside as well. And data embassy and data tracker. Data tracker, I already told you about. I as a citizen can check. And data embassy is something we have in Luxembourg. So copies of our most important registries are over there, because let's say a war breaks out and the physical servers in Estonia are all destroyed. Our digital state will crumble. So we're keeping the basics running in Luxembourg as well, just to be on the safe side. And I mean, we can afterwards redesign digital marriage or digital divorce. The basics have to be constant.